What is up, YouTube? I'm bringing you another fucking guide. Like I said, I'm gonna be cranking these out. There is 82 gods or whatever that we're at now, something like that. And I'm not just doing assassins. I'm starting off with the assassins because that's what I know best and that's what I feel I can explain the best to you. So I'm gonna go through all the assassins and then we're gonna go to the other classes. We'll hit up hunters, we'll hit up warriors, we'll hit up mages, we'll hit up everything. So for those people asking that question, now you know. Eventually we will get to everything. So today we're doing Thanatos, as you can see, switching to the Archon skin because I pretty much have to. That's the way it works. We're going to jump into the build in a second. I want to cover abilities first, just because with Thanatos, the abilities kind of affect, with most gods, the abilities affect the build, but with Thanatos, more people try to argue certain things, so I want to go over this. You're maxing your 1, obviously. You're going to be maxing your ult after that, because the execute percentage goes up, so the threshold goes from 24 up to 40%. You can kill somebody at 40 fucking percent health. That's insane. So having the ult up there is going to be important. So once again, maxing scythe. I max my 2 after that. The 3 doesn't hit all that crazy hard, and now that they changed the silence duration to 1 second at all levels, it doesn't need to be ranked up to scale. So you're pretty much, like I said, maxing your 1, maxing your ult, maxing your 2, maxing your 3. Really straightforward. Now, thing to note, with the 2, you get penetration from it when it's up. When it is up. It is up for 6 seconds. It has a cooldown of 13 seconds. It's a long time it's up, but that doesn't change the fact that there are times where you won't have that pen. You won't have that ability to just fucking dumpster somebody because your 2 is up. You know what I mean? So with my build, I go warrior tabby. You're hitting hard, your ability-based assassin, straightforward. You have low mobility. So making sure you get the most out of each ability is very important. That is why my build is going to include Jotuns for pen, power, and CDR, Brawlers for pen and power, Spirit Robe for the little bit of defense because you have low mobility. And when I say low mobility, I mean you don't have dash, you don't have instant movement. You have to run away with your 2 or you have to ult out when you're standing fucking still. You're not a high mobility god. I'm sorry, you're not. So, Spirit Robe for the CDR, a little bit of defense, and the CCR. Then you got Stone Cutting Sword, because with Thanatos, you're almost always scything and then auto-attacking because your scythe slows and they're chunked, so they're usually not fighting back, and you're usually just beating their ass. So this is going to give you power, it's going to give you a little bit of movement, which is what is helping Thanatos excel more than usual. And then you've got the Protection Shred, which is awesome. So, you've got more pen, more power, more movement speed, and then you've got your percentage pen and your power. So as you can see with this build, without your 2 up, you're sitting at 30 pen, and then you've got your percentage pen. Now, that's awesome. That's great. With your 2 up, you should be overcapping, I believe, correct? Yeah, 35. You're overcapping by a decent amount. But the fact of the matter is that puts you up to overcapping by an ability. You're not wasting anything. You're not going out of your way. These items you're picking up are amazing. And the fact that your 2 is not always up is why I like to have this build. I love this fucking build. I don't like going into an auto attack build because it's not going to work consistently. You want max damage out of your 1 at all times, and you want to snowball with it. The Stone Cutting Sword is going to allow you to snowball a little bit longer. Granted, there are fun builds you can go. You can throw a Deathbringer in as your last item if you're just shit stomping people, so when you auto attack, you crit for fucking 700, which is fun. Go for it. You don't have the attack speed to just rely on straight auto attack build because you're not building attack speed. That's not going to be the best option for you. Even if you have like a Wing Blade thrown in there somewhere, it's not the best option, and because your 2 is slow immune, you don't always need to pick up Wing Blade. It's not as good, but it is still a good item. So, like I said, on Thanatos, you're an ability-based assassin. Your ult in the beginning of the game should usually be used to engage. It's used almost like a Thor ult. It's awesome for lockdown. It's easy as fuck to land. You can travel pretty far. It guarantees your scythe to land. It sets up your team. It's amazing. You don't need to execute with your ult early game. Now, if you're able to fight in close quarters, like you're just running into each other in the jungle, sure, use it to execute. But if you're looking to gank solo lane, duo lane, come from Gold Fury and go to mid lane and hit the mid laner, you choose your ult. It's easy travel. It's unexpected by most players because the low level players only think you execute with it. Can't talk. So make sure you're doing that early game. Now the shift in mid to late game, there is a shift in mid to late game. Mid to late game, you're not using your ult to engage unless you're already winning the team fight. Thanatos does very well when your team can pump out damage from range, and then you can kind of make them freak out by ulting because they're in execute range, and then it allows your team to engage a little bit harder, allows you to kill that person, and it's really, really strong. Thanatos has always been known to fall off damage-wise, which you do. Your 1 isn't going to chunk somebody for half health when they've got all their items online, and they're not a fucking mage. But the execute is never going to change. That's why Thanatos is still pretty good late game as long as your team is not behind. So the idea of Thanatos is to get your team ahead and yourself ahead early, snowball for as long as possible. Once the other team catches up or isn't getting one-shot by you, you're playing to use that ult as an execute. Try not to use it as an escape unless you have to. Try not to be out of position. So pretty much you're playing like a ranged poke, and then you're looking to engage once your execute is up, usually. Once again, if you poke somebody out, you run into each other in the jungle, and you're fighting, it's okay to fight. You don't really need to ult right away. You can save your ult. That's allowed. That's pretty much the play style of Thanatos. Early game, look to engage with your ult. Mid to late game, look to kill with your ult. Early game, if you're fighting without ulting, then use it to execute. Pretty straightforward. With this build, you're pretty squishy. So remember that when you're running around, you're not a frontliner with this. That's why Thanatos can be very difficult for players to play. He's not highly mobile. He's really, you miss a scythe, it kind of fucks you up really bad. So I'd say with this god, work on your mechanics greatly. Take your time with your scythes. And it's one good tip I have for you. When you're fighting somebody and you go in and you're auto attack battling, remember your scythe will heal you for a lot and it'll hit them hard. So if you're auto attacking somebody, fight them down to your like 60%. And then hit them with the scythe, and they'll go from whatever, say you're both at 60, they're going to go from 60 to 20, and you're going to go from 60 to 80, and then who the fuck's winning the fight? It's an insta-turn. So remember that. You don't always have to open with the scythe. You can open with some auto attacks, a silence, kind of fuck them up a little bit, and then smack them in the head with the scythe, and they won't know what happened. It's kind of like Arachne, where you need to know your limitations and use them as an advantage, because people won't expect it. That is a big thing with Thanatos that will make you excel, especially against lower players that don't understand how good Thanatos is and what Thanatos actually does. Now, with that being said, you kind of know the build, you kind of know the playstyle. We'll go over the matchups. I'm not going to go into in-depth too much because with Thanatos, you're pretty much playing for the early game, but there are some matchups that are more so in your favor than others. I like Thanatos versus Thor. Thor ever hammer throws, you can dunk on top of him with your ult and kill him. Thor ever spins, you can silence out the spin. Your scythe can counter the damage he's doing with his spin or his hammer throw. You just have to make sure you hit it, which is awesome. You have that sustain there. I like playing Thanatos against Thor. And then some of the other matchups get a little bit more risky, like I'm always saying. I don't really like Thanatos into gods like Serket. Thanatos in a Nemesis can be rough if the Nem knows how to use shield. But besides that, you're just looking to take advantage of these gods early game. Any gods that don't fight well early game, fight them and take advantage of them. Gods like Nemesis, gods like Hunbats, gods like, what else gets played on? Susano, definitely Susano. Take advantage of those gods as best as possible. Now, Guardian-wise, the ones that can be tough but also easy at the same time is Sylvanas. Anyone that heals or is playing around healing. So Sylvanas and Guan Yu are going to be those gods that you can beat very easily because they're usually in your face. You can silence them out of their abilities, like Guan can silence out the spin, or you can silence the heal and hit them. But remember, if you go to ult and they're right around the threshold, there's a good chance they're going to heal above that threshold while you're in the air. So make sure they're low enough. If your team has anti-healing, make sure it's up before you go in the air. Those are the ones that can go either way. You can really mess up or you can do really well against, because like Sylvanas has no mobility, so it's easy to just beat his ass. Now, one god I hate. So I said I like Thanatos into Thor. I do not like Thanatos into Thor Geb. Geb just does so fucking well with the shield, countering out the scythe and fucking you up. If you dunk on somebody and don't kill them and go to scythe them, Geb shields it and you do nothing. You're just kind of there out of position. Geb takes full advantage of Thanatos in my opinion with the shield, with the knock up, with the kind of the lockdown. It just fucks you up. So try to avoid Geb. All the other gods you should be fine against. You excel against the Khepri because of your execute. Thanatos ult will kill anyone who has Khepri ult on them. Just make sure they don't actually die and turn into a little ball. Make sure they just have the ult on them when you land on them. Everyone else you should be fine against. Really shouldn't struggle too much as long as you take advantage of early game. Assassins you're going to do fine against, especially all the ones that rely on slows like Poseidon, Ra, even Kulkin you'll do fine against. Pretty easy to do. Janus, you do well against all these gods. Really shouldn't struggle all too much. And then hunters, once again, all the ones that you can silence out, pretty easy. All the ones that don't have leaps because you don't have a leap, pretty easy to stick on and not going to struggle too much. There isn't anyone you need to worry about all that much, honestly. And then warrior-wise, once again, all fairly easy. I kind of like going in Thanatos versus Vamana because you can silence out the dash. So if you ever before level 5 or Vamana's ult is down, you can start fighting Vamana, and you can see when a Vamana wants to dash. So back away a little bit, kind of bait him in, especially if your solo laner's hitting him too. Let your solo laner beat his ass. Then when he goes to dash, silence him out. Make sure you have that range, because the range on Thanatos' Scythe is awesome. Robin can be annoying too if he immunes the Scythe, but you should be good. Otherwise, all the other gods, once again, you're just taking advantage of the fact that you have high damage and an execute. Erlang Shen, watch out for the ult heal. That's all you have to worry about. Hopefully I covered everything. I always say this at the end of every video because I'm kind of I'm going with initial thoughts. I'm not like writing this stuff out. I'm just telling you what I would think whenever I'm looking at a god. So you know the build, you know the playstyle, you know some of the gods to avoid, some of the gods to focus on. Team comp wise, that's something I didn't cover. Team comp wise, you need initiation from your team because you can't be the frontliner or you'll get fucked up. And you need decent damage coming out of your team or you'll struggle. If you pair too much early game, could also be bad, like an Isis and a Thanatos. If you don't just dumpster out the early game, then you'll probably lose the game because you need to snowball that or you have no late game. But you pair Thanatos with gods like Kukulkan, you can ult in, like I said it as an initiation, Kukulkan ult off of it, and it'll be way more unexpected, way more less expected than like a Thor dunk. It's just the way it is. Or Thanatos Ra does great, Thanatos Scylla, all these gods you can combo off of do fantastic. So remember that with your mid laner. All your other laners, like I said, just have frontline. You should be fine. And that's all you really have to worry about in Thanatos. So hopefully this guide helps you. There will be gameplay in up the same day as this. It'll be like 3 hours after, so make sure you watch that. Remember, in the gameplays, I don't always use this exact build. This is more of like the build I would use in competitive. Sometimes in my gameplays, I'm using fun builds and stuff just to not be so repetitive. So remember that when you see my gameplays, all my gameplays aren't super tryhard. So remember that.